Okay, I had a request to make a video for SimCity showing my entire city, most specifically the layout and the specialty buildings that I have that boost population. So that's what this is. So we're going to go through this. Right now I'm just going to scroll around my entire city. You have to understand, I'm level 58 obviously right now, and I have not, nor did I ever, have a structured plan for the layout of my city. I just kind of built things, and as I went, I altered the streets to fit stuff in, or I moved things around to make it look good, or however it worked. And I've been playing for quite a bit of time, so I picked up a lot of specialty buildings over the course of the last, I don't even know how long it's been, a year and a half? Maybe 2 years. It's been more than a year, but I don't honestly remember. And a lot of my buildings were acquired from the seasons, the Americontest seasons, and so you can't really get those unless you were in that particular season and earned them by going up through the ranks and achieving each consecutive league. So here we are in my city, over on the beach side right now, and like I said, I don't have a structure, I didn't have a plan, I just kind of put the roads down, and as I continued to grow, I altered the roads to fit the buildings. Now my plan has always been to keep the commercial buildings that provide utilities away from everything else. Right now I've got them at the bottom. I don't know what the best place for them is, but right now they're set across the bottom of my city. I still have a couple lines or rows or whatever it's called of land to acquire, and that's not really a priority for me. I'm not too concerned about that. But as you can see, I've got quite a few of the utility buildings because I got quite a bit of population, and my Omega stuff is down here at the bottom as well. And there's a lot of roads that wind up dead ending, as you can see right there, and that's because, like I said, as I progressed through the game, I didn't have a structured plan. I just altered things to fit. And let's go back over here and scroll back down. So that's my city, and we're going to go through all the specialty buildings in a minute because that was what was requested. But in case you missed it, over here on the left by the beach, and I don't know if this is the smartest way to do it, it's just the way it went. I have never been a fan of putting buildings of one particular type next to each other and just having, a certain area or whatever, like a Chinatown or, a Paris quadrant or whatever, with the exception of Omega, because they have to be all in the same area based on the control net towers. So it made sense to me to keep those together. Outside of that, the way I did it was I put all of my epic buildings in a row or in an area so that when I went to collect the tokens, they were all together. So what I've done is I've placed all the epic buildings over here along the beach area, or the left side of my city is what I'm going to call it, and on the furthest left side closest to the beach is where I have all my gold token buildings. Now, I can't collect the gold tokens right now because when you have more than 5, you can no longer collect them from your epic buildings, although you can earn them from either wars or the Contest of Mayors rewards, or you can also earn them, or actually not earn them, but buy them from the Neo Mall. And I'm a big fan of the Neo Mall and Neo Simoleons. And then I believe I have a total of 15 gold buildings. Maybe it's 16 now. I don't really keep track. I know the last time I collected them, I needed 16 in order to get one gold token, 16 pieces. And it may be more now because I did level at least once since the last time I was able to collect. And then I do have my mountain epics near the top here because I don't particularly find it easy to collect from them if they're staggered between tall buildings. So that's the only type of building that I actually keep together intentionally, because it's just easier to be able to see the tokens when they're not staggered between tall buildings. But outside of that, there's no real attempt at putting a lot of building types together. And then I have, you can't see it now because they've all been collected, but then I have several rows of the silver token buildings. And as you can see there, that comes across another silver, and then eventually here I come across to the bronze, and then I forget how far down it comes. I guess it's all the way down to the bottom. Anyway, so then at about the midway point, third of the way across, whatever, it switches from the epic buildings and becomes the omega buildings, and I have my tier 6, the tallest, finally completed, finished all the way to the top omega buildings. As you can see here, Omega Home Type 6. I don't actually know what the difference is between all the letters of the Omega buildings. There's a tower in there for Tokyo Town. Just happened to fit in because it's just outside of the radius of the control net towers. And I run the Omega buildings all the way across, all the way over until I get to the mountain. And I tried, it doesn't always work because as they upgrade, it doesn't, I don't always move them around, but I try to have the smallest, the level 1 buildings, level 2 buildings over here closest to the mountain. And the reason for that is because most of my specialty buildings are closer to the center, or at least not on the far edges of the city, because I want the surrounding area to be fully used if possible. So if you put them right at the edge, and let's say it's a 20 by 20 zone that the population boost is on, if you put them right on the edge by the beach or the mountain, then half of that zone is lost. So anyway, that's the city altogether. And now let's go through and do some specialty buildings. Specializations, let's look at parks first. Now parks probably is the only one that I have a lot of overlap. I have multiple parks very close to one another, and all I did was I went through and everywhere that I could fit in a little building, a park, whatever, that I couldn't fit anything else in, I put a park in. And if I didn't have buildings, residential buildings that were covered by a park, I tried to make the room to put a park in, because I want to try to have as much coverage of all the specialty buildings as I can. Now in a few minutes we'll see that's not 100% with all of them, but for the most part I have coverage on every residential building for every specialty building. So that's parks in general. It is my experience that the 3 best parks are the Peaceful Park and the Row of Trees, and they go in opposite directions. One is like an east-west and one is like a north-south, depending on the layout of the roads and such. And then those are the basic 2 parks. And then if you scroll all the way across here, I do have some other stuff, but the Sakura Park is a top-notch park, 8 by 8, but it's 25%. The geometric sculpture is okay, it's 6 by 12. But the Omega Park 10 by 10 for $40, in my opinion, is probably the third best park there is, second best park, I'm not sure. The Omega Park, the Sakura Park, just because of its size, and like I said, the row of trees and the Peaceful Park are the four favorites I have. Maybe they're not the actual best, but I think they're definitely in the top. So that's what I use the most of. Alright, so that's parks. Let's move sideways here if I can get the arrows to scroll. I don't have a lot of landscape. I'm not a landscape fan. However, when I didn't have a road next to an open spot, I just kind of threw a pond in there. And so there's a few ponds here and there. But landscape is definitely not a priority. However, over here, just for the fun of it, the way I set up my road, I wound up with a open spot that I either could have been another road or it just could have been dead space. And what I decided to do was, if we zoom in here, I decided to make it a complete row of ponds, making it a river of sorts, and then put suspension bridge over it, because it's my personal belief that the suspension bridge is the absolute best bridge there is. Now here you can see it, and it goes all the way down there, and then I kind of have one going each way, and then I do have another one down here, much smaller, but that is the extent of my landscape. So let's go sideways here again. We're going to go to education, and my Omega quadrant, the smallest tier buildings, the level 1, level 2, and they do wind up some level 3, and then I do have a few French buildings and maybe a London building or two over here on the edge that don't have full coverage, but most of my city is covered by education as well as everything else. I don't know what that was. I accidentally hit something. In education, in my opinion, the absolute best building is the Omega University, and you can see I have one there, and then I also have one over here, and this one is much higher population boost based on its location. Now, when I place specialty buildings, I do it for two reasons, and I'm not sure which one is more important. They're kind of both the same to me, but I definitely want population boost, so I shoot for the absolute best population boost that I can find, and the Omega University gives a 50% boost on a 22 by 22 radius, which is really top notch. The downside is it's platinum keys and 40 of them. But it's a really good building. Up here we have some of the season buildings when they had education as the season specialty, and we can look at this right now. That's the University Aquarium, and the way that's set up, I get 63,000 boost on it, and based on its size, that's better actually than the Omega University, or at least the placement is. And then over here, another season prize, the University Observatory, I get 105,000 from that one based on its size and placement. Down here I have the University Campus Center, and like I said earlier, I do have two reasons that I place these specialty buildings. The first one obviously is the population, but the second reason, and this is why I have this building currently on the board, the second reason is because I do a lot of epic buildings during the mayor contest. I don't do any epic buildings unless it's a mayor contest assignment, but I wind up getting quite a few of them during the mayor contests, and in order to facilitate making that as easy as possible, I try to make sure that all the buildings that I have placed are either a 3-point or 4-point building. So for example, I'm going to look at this University Art Gallery here, down here in the bottom row. I'm going to click on that, And as you can see, it's a 20 by 20 radius, boost of 40%, but then the epic points is 2. And I don't like wasting time and effort collecting 1 point or 2 points from an epic task when it could be 3 or, even better, 4. So I try to make sure that all my buildings are 3 or 4 pointers. Now the Omega University is 4 points. That currently is the highest of any building. 4 points is as good as you can get. And why not get 4 points instead of 1? I mean, if you did all of your epic tasks on 4-point buildings, getting to the 80 points for the silver, or what's it called, cheetah? I don't know. It's not cheetah. That's gold. Getting to the 80 points for the silver token would take 20 tasks. 20 times 4, 80. I'm hoping my math is right here. I don't know. My brain seems to be fried at the minute. But if you did all 1-point assignments, it would take 80 tasks. And why do 80 tasks when you can only do 20? So I try to maximize both the population and the epic point benefit. And sometimes I will put down a building that doesn't give me 3 or 4 points for epic, but I try to make sure I pick it up when I'm going to do an epic building in that specialization. I don't leave it on the map if I can help it. Now, obviously, when I first started and as I was growing, I didn't have enough specialty buildings and I had to do the 1 point and the 2 point. But the point is, you want to progress eventually to the point where you can eliminate all your 1 and 2 point buildings because they're just not as good. Okay, so that's education. Let's go to transportation. Transportation kind of confuses me because all the way across to the right is the Omega Tube Tunnel, but it's only a 12 by 12 and it's only 40%, yet it costs platinum. Now you can go over here to the heliport and it's 18 by 18 with a 50% boost. Why spend platinum keys on something that is inferior, like the Omega Tube Terminal? If somebody can explain this to me, please do, when you can do the 18 by 18 for 50%. And then the balloon park, I kind of like balloons, so I made sure that I had a balloon up. But even still, that's 16 by 16 for 40, and the Omega Tube Terminal is only 12 by 12. So again, that's a waste of platinum keys, in my opinion. I do not have an Omega Tube Terminal. I have multiple heliports. I do have one airship hangar because I do like the blimps, and I did want balloons, so I had a balloon park. Nothing else here impresses me, so we've got heliports and heliports and more heliports and more heliports, and there's the airship hangar, and over here we have the balloon park. So mostly it's heliports. To be perfectly honest, I think that's the only really good transportation building. So that's transportation. Then we're going to scroll sideways here and let's come over to beach. Now when it comes to the beach, I have a total of 278,000 total and 424 total boost, and a large majority of my buildings from the beach are these Sailormen's Piers. Now, most of the other buildings that I have are from a season challenge, and let's go through and look at them real quick. We've got the Sailing Club, and then we've got the Luxury Cruise Ship, and then over here we have the Luxury Mall, and then here we have the Royal Resort, and then here we have the Sailing Boat Pier, And then down here at the bottom, just because of its size benefit, I do have one of the luxury boat marinas. But most of my items on the beach, I've found that I maximize my population by having the Sailorman's Piers. I see a lot of players that do nothing but the marinas, but it is my experience that the pier actually gives you a bigger boost overall. So that's the beach. Let's move on sideways here to entertainment. Again, a lot of seasoned buildings. This one right here is the sci-fi movie set. And then this one up here is the horror movie set. And this one up here is the epic movie set. And then we have the Oslo Opera House. And down here we have Ferris wheels. I have multiple Ferris wheels. I like the Ferris wheel a lot. And then I have too many entertainment buildings to actually fit. I start overlapping a lot with the coverage. So a lot of my buildings got put down at the very edge. This is the Dragon Carnival from the most recent season. Or depending on when you view this, it's the most recent season that I have completed. And then this is also from the recent season, the Caribbean Carnival. And then this is another Ferris wheel. And then I don't have coverage over in this corner because the buildings are so small, the population is so small, it doesn't really have a lot of good impact. So that is the extent of my entertainment. Now, one thing I want to show you is that when you have overlap, when you have buildings that the green area, which is the radius of impact from their population boost, when it overlaps other buildings' radius, then what you actually get is you'll notice that the point value, the total benefit, diminishes when you have overlap that's big enough. So just for example, let's look at these two buildings right now. We've got 48,822 and then 11,232. If I were to pick this building up, the 48,822, and move it sideways, when I bring it back and place it, it's less. Okay, now, do you think all of a sudden, oh my goodness, I've lost population? Well, no. What happened is when I picked it up and moved it, the other buildings that were diminished in their population boost, the value actually went up. So let's look at it again. I'm going to do the 18,000 one though, and then we'll notice 18 and 35. So when I move the 18,000 one, if I bring it down here and move it around, when I come back up here and place it, I suppose if I didn't mess up, then we'll notice that the two Ferris wheels actually gained population. So again, 44,720. If we move it sideways and then we bring it back up, we notice that the other buildings gain that population difference. So what happens, and one thing you want to consider, is when your buildings overlap in their population boost radius, it actually has a negative impact and you don't get as much as it says. It makes them diminish in value. So you want to be careful with that because it can negatively impact as you increase the overlap. One thing that I originally wanted to do when I first started playing, I was like, oh my goodness, the Washington Monument is the absolute best building there is based on size and boost. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just make an entire row of Washington monuments going down the very center of my city, and that way it has this huge impact to both sides. But what I found was when you overlap that radius, it actually diminishes your total population boost. So while I have a certain population level right now. I've got 2,747,451, and I move my buildings around here and change the boost to the individual buildings. It doesn't actually change my population, it just alters where the boost goes on what buildings, if that makes any sense. Okay, so that's entertainment. Let's move on here. We're going to go over to mountain now. With mountain, I have found that for the most part the castle is the best building there is. Now the exception were these two special buildings that were introduced, the Stoneface Waterfall, which is a Platinum Key building, and the Waterfall Castle, again another Platinum building, and I don't remember exactly where they came from, but they were introduced into the game as Platinum specialty buildings that you could acquire. I do have one of these ski jumping hills, and the only reason I have it is because I don't have enough residential buildings down here in this bottom corner to warrant the castle actually giving me a population boost. Its radius does not reach the residential buildings. So, as you can see here, my bottom castle has no population boost associated with it because it doesn't cover any residential buildings. So what I did was I just fit that ski jumping hill in to get a bigger boost than I would have had without it. But if I were to do an epic building, like I said, I would pick that building up because excuse me, when I store it, we can look at it here and see it only gives 2 epic points. So I'll put that down for the excuse me, sorry, the population boost, but I don't leave it down when I do an epic building. Okay, so that's mountain. Castle is basically the only thing unless you have the platinum buildings. Alright, then we have gambling. Now, gambling is just a lot of crappy buildings, and in my opinion, when they started the season that included the gambling specialty buildings, they really went downhill on the buildings. They were not nearly as good, and it was pretty disappointing. But there aren't really a whole lot of what I would call really good gambling buildings. Let's see what we have here. This is a luxurious casino tower. I do want to have, you know, the overlap and the coverage as much as I could. The Omega Casino, which is just not as good as I had hoped it would be. The luxurious casino, again, I have a couple of those. Luxurious casino tower. Lucky Stars Casino. The Sci-Fi Casino. Over here we have the Wild West Casino, and then we have another luxurious casino tower, and then down here the Four Aces Casino. Now again, some of those are season prizes, so you can't acquire all of those unless you were there during the season. So that's gambling. And then landmarks, the Taj Mahal, recently acquired that in a season. Come up here, I have quite a few Washington monuments. I do believe the Washington Monument is an excellent building, but again, when you start doing overlap, let's show again here, we've got 26,414, and the Washington Monument to the left of it is 49,781. If you move that, you can see that the other Washington Monument boosted up to 55,8 because they overlap. So another Washington Monument right there. As I come over here, this is the Maxis Man statue. Come here, and we have another Washington Monument. Then this is the Heralda. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly. I believe it's Heralda. That's a good building. And then we have another Heralda, and then we have the Kohler Dam. And I like the Kohler Dam, if nothing else, just because I like the way it looks. So I'm not sure it's actually as good of a building as the other ones without checking it and seeing its stats and everything, but it is 3 points for the epic buildings, and it is pretty cool looking. So that is landmarks, and let's finish it off with the minor arrival of one temple. That's all I have for worship, is one small temple. Let's double check to make sure that I'm actually right. I only have one worship building. Yes, worship is really weak. The best, they're all the same. The best boost you get is 20%, and to me it's not worth putting a lot of 20% buildings in when you can maximize a regular residential building and get more just from a building than putting in something that's going to give you a boost that isn't nearly as good. Why not gain the taxes and forget the boost that is inferior? So I only have one temple, but I do have it because I did want one. And that is my city overview, including all specialty buildings. And hopefully that shows you everything you wanted to see. And if you have any questions, feel free. If you dislike my video, please tell me why. If you like the video and you want to click like, that's fine. If you want to subscribe, feel free. If you want to share, always happy to help other people. If you think this will help someone else, please feel free. But mostly, primarily, honestly, if you dislike my video, and this one in particular I only did because it was a request, so I'm trying to fulfill someone's request. That's why I have done this. But if you dislike my video, don't just say you dislike it. Don't just click dislike. Please tell me why. Let me know what I did wrong so that in future videos, hopefully, I can change, alter, whatever the case may be, so it's more beneficial for more people. That is my goal. I am trying to help other people so that they don't have the same struggle that I went through, being confused, not understanding something, whatever the case may be, as they progress through the game. Let's make it easier. Let's help everybody. So let's put up some videos that help people, show them what maybe they didn't know. But if you don't tell me why you don't like my video, then I can't figure out what I did wrong. Anyway, I hope you all do great in the game. I hope you all have fun, and if you participate in the wars or the contest of mayors, I hope you score really well. And everybody have a good day.